In terms of anonymous online job postings, it wasn't the strangest that I'd ever answered. The ad offered a ludicrous amount of money for a singles day worth of work. What that work would be wasn't really spelled out. The only information provided was an address, the promise of $5,000, and one short sentence describing the nature of the task. You will be helping Dr. Paolo. He is trying to save the world. Pretty ambitious of the doctor, but for $5,000, I was fine enabling some crackpot's fantasies. Lord knows I've done worse for less. And that's how I found myself standing in front of a quiet office park at 4 a.m. this morning, hoodie pulled tight against the early autumn chill, chewing my lip and trying to puzzle out how such a weird job led to such a cozy location. The office buildings were clean white and chrome, the plaza in between well-groomed and crossed with cobble pathways that ran artfully from building to building like stone rivers. There were even tiny freaking bonsai trees. What a trip. I double-checked the address of the posting and I walked towards the appropriate office. I did a subtle pat against the concealed holster on my right hip, just to remind myself that it was there. Technically, I didn't have a concealed carry permit, or a handgun license for that matter. But with the unregulated kind of work that I did, I figured that it was worth the risk, especially for today. Working with the kind of doctor who posts anonymous jobs to the web and promising to pay in cash. That's a lot of red flags if you're the kind of person who prefers to keep their organs snug and comfortable in their original packaging. Still, $5,000 for one day of work was too tempting to write off entirely. So I told myself that I would scope the guy out, and then cut and run if I got a bad vibe. The tidy office park put me a little at ease, I'll admit it. I was expecting an abandoned warehouse or a meatpacking plant, or a deserted junkyard at the edge of town that only serviced ice cream trucks and panel vans, and the usual. The lobby lights were off, but the building's door was unlocked. I walked in cautiously and soft light snapped to life. My hand was halfway to my holster before I realized that the lights were on motion sensors. The interior was a mirror image of the exterior. White, polished, full of marble and modern angles. It was trendy. I didn't like it. There was no one at the front desk, but as I drew closer, I noticed a big blue post-it note on the counter. Half of your money is behind the desk. The rest will be paid upon completion. Please meet me in room 8. Dr. P. I walked behind the desk and I found a large red duffel bag. Inside of the bag were several stacks of fresh $20 and $50 bills. I'll be damned, I said. Here was the money, half of it at least. There was the door. I nearly walked out, and I wish I had. But my curiosity was like gasoline in search of a fire. I simply couldn't help myself. I walked down the hall, counting doors until I reached room 8. The door was unlocked. Shit, I whispered. The room was cavernous, much larger than I would have expected. Larger than it should have fit in the entire building. Hospital beds stretched in neat rows and aisles as far as I could see in every direction. Small white cots with white blankets in a room as pale as a deep rolling fish that had never seen the sun. Everything was spotless, but everything, everywhere, was sickness. You could smell it in the air. The nauseously sweet odors of rotting things and bodies dying slowly. Everywhere I looked, I saw misery. People writhing in pain on the cots, sweating and moaning. A few were begging, many more were silent. There was another sound as well, faint but persistent. It took me a moment to realize that it was music. Quiet, cheerful, elevated music. Several rows to my left, I noticed a man bent over a bed, checking the pulse of an unmoving body lying tangled in sheets. The man stood up and turned towards me. I started to shake. The man was dressed as a doctor. A white coat, tie, stethoscope, and all, but I could not see his face. He was wearing a black mask with huge eyes and a long beak. Slowly, he raised a hand and gave me a little wave and then turned and pointed. That was where he wanted me to go. While I stood there, my mind stuck on loading, unable to process the scene. Another doctor in a black bird mask wandered. He was whistling. The second doctor stopped and when he noticed me, and then he gave me a little wave and he pointed to the same destination. "No," I whispered. "Please." The doctors just stood pointing. A third doctor approached from, I'm not sure where. She was dressed identically to the other two and carried a chart. She didn't bother waving when she came close, she only pointed. Her foot tapped in a pantomime of impatience, and I felt a heavy dread settle in my stomach. Okay, I said. I began to walk. As I went past the rows and rows of beds, I saw nightmares that I could have never imagined. I watched a masked doctor comfort a woman with a pad in her hand while she shrieked as something inside of her began clawing its way out. In another bed, several doctors held down a man as he jerked and twitched, massive red pustules forming and bursting across his chest, so rapidly that I could hear them pop. The smell was staggering. Not far away, another woman had fallen from her cot and lay tangled in a pile of wires. I drew closer and I realized the cords that wrapped around her weren't wires. They were greasy blue veins. When she tried to stand and rip some of the veins loose, I saw that they were connected to her. Somehow they had just gone from inside her body to out. She didn't scream when she ripped the veins. She only sunk back to the floor into a fast-growing puddle of her own blood. A doctor approached her with a mop, but I did not stay to watch. After what felt like hours walking among the dead and dying, I finally reached a door. This is where the masked doctors had sent me. The door was unusually tall, bright red with a frosted glass panel. Above the panel was a name written in gold letters. Dr. Paolo. Feeling like I was in a fever dream, I knocked. "Come on in," said a voice on the other side of the glass. I opened the door and was immediately blinded by beautiful golden light. I screamed in pain and joy. I'm not sure which feeling was stronger. "Sorry," said the voice. "I forgot about that." The light was gone, but all I could see was blackness. "Yep," the voice continued. "Looks like we burned those out. That must have started something awful. Hold on a minute, we'll patch it right up." I felt a hand reach out and touch my face. Not just touch, but enfold. The darkness lifted and my vision returned, blurry but quickly clearing. The room was well lit and comfortable, spacious but dominated by a large desk in the center. A man sat behind the desk, smiling slightly at me. He was dressed like the doctors in the ward, except this man wasn't wearing a mask. His face was flawless, inhuman in its perfection, like a statue come to life. "It's good to meet you," he said. "I've been waiting so very long for today." The man stood up and I saw that he was tall, impossibly tall, He didn't so much as stand as unfold himself from behind the desk. "My name is Dr. Paolo," he told me. I couldn't speak. I couldn't find any words. Dr. Paolo's smile widened. "I understand. Today is a big day." He winked and reached behind his desk. "The rest of your money," the doctor said, handing me an identical red bag to what I had found in the lobby. His hands were so large that he only used his thumb and index finger to hold the duffel bag. Plus a little bit extra. Call it a bonus for being timely. I clutched the bag to my chest, mouth working, still unable to speak. Finally, I managed to choke out a few words. "You said the ad. You need an assistant?" The doctor shook his head. "No, I have assistants. My little birds out there. What I need from you is much more important. I need your help of spreading the cure." "The cure for what?" "The cure for you," he said. "Why don't you take a seat?" I plopped down instantly. Luckily, a chair was somehow behind me. I held the bag closer, a security blanket. Dr. Paolo sat down on the edge of his giant desk. "I don't understand," I said. "What do I need cured?" No, the cure isn't for you. The cure is for everything else. You are the disease." I shook my head. "I don't." "You," he continued. "All of you, people, humans. You are the greatest plague ever inflicted upon this planet. You burn and you kill, and you take and you pollute, and you use and you breed, and your offspring continue the cycle in an ever-worsening spiral. You were given paradise and you poisoned it. You were given everything and you ruined it, spoiled it, used it all up and never showed an ounce of gratitude at the unfathomable depth of gifts and blessings you so casually healed into the dirt. You are a plague. You are the plague. And I have spent so very, very long looking for a cure. I've tried so many times throughout history, but always you manage to survive, to outbreed your losses, to come back worse than you were before." He leaned back and chuckled. "You're like aggressive bacteria, harder to kill than cockroaches, but cockroaches at least have personality. And so for the sake of the cockroaches, and every other thing that walks, swims, flies or crawls, for the sake of the deep water and the soft skies, the trees tied to the earth, and the wind that touches those trees like a lover, for them and for the rest of the planet, I have created a cure and you will carry it to the rest of your ugly little species." I was crying silently. As he spoke, I saw images of every casual horror, every atrocity mankind ever wrought. I saw forest fires dance behind his eyes, heard atomic bombs drop in the silence between his words. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," I said. The doctor leaned forward. "I know. The sorriest thing I've ever seen. But today, you can rise above the blood and the muck and the violence of your previous life. Today, you can help me save the world." "Why me?" I whispered. He shrugged. "You answered the ad. Are you ready?" I couldn't speak. Paolo smiled again and then leaned closer. He filled up my vision. He was an eclipse. As I sat trembling, the doctor gently kissed my forehead. The dread that I had carried with me since I had opened door 8 finally bloomed into numb acceptance. In the kiss, I felt a transfer. Something insubstantial but inevitable, as heavy and as hidden as guilt. "You are my cure," he told me as he drew back. "Now go, travel, explore, spread." I woke up alone in my apartment. That was 3 days ago. I've convinced myself that I was drugged, that the doctor must have tested some kind of hallucinogenic on me. Some new drug, something vivid. I would say the entire experience was a dream, except that there were 2 red duffel bags swollen with cash in the corner of my room. Enough money to get away, enough money to see the world. But to do that, I would need to leave my apartment. And the truth is, I've been feeling a little under the weather the past few days. Time waits for no man though, so this morning I booked tickets for a flight, for a trip. We're living in strange times. You never know how much time you have left. I think I should see the world while I can. It's almost like there's a little voice in my head telling me to go. And so I'll walk down to the pharmacy later, stock up on meds for the plane ride. This new cough is becoming persistent. And then I'll pack my bags and I'll take my cash. And I'll go on a grand adventure.